Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about Doctor Who Series 14 slash Doctor Who Series 1. What I thought of it and just my general opinion of, well, the series as a whole. I mean, pretty good series. I mean, it wasn't perfect and it wasn't great, but I would say it was a solid series. But there are some issues with it that I will get into later on in the video. But your big question you're probably asking is probably nothing to do with Doctor Who. It's probably like, where have you been, Evan? Yeah, I've been very busy. Lots of stuff has happened. Um, um, I finished all of my exams, so that's brilliant. Lovely summer. I can do what I want now, and it's brilliant. I can chill, and it's brilliant. All of the exams are done, so that's good, and I'll be back making tons more videos. And I look forward to doing that as well. And I can't wait to be back in business, I guess. But on a quite sadder note, my granddad unfortunately passed away a few weeks ago, and I haven't been able to make videos as well. That's been a leading factor as well. He was a great man. Uh, may you rest in peace, granddad, if you're watching me up in heaven. Um, Interesting fact about my granddad: he actually met John Pertwee at a house party uh, in the 1980s or something. Very interesting story. He was full of stories, my granddad. And he also, the first ever Doctor Who episode, classic Doctor Who episode I watched was with my granddad, and that was the Caves of Androzani on the horror sci-fi channel. I don't know whether that's still a thing anymore, but yeah, that's one of the first classic series episodes I ever watched. It's interesting. But may you rest in peace, granddad. So, Series 14. What did I think of Series 14 as a whole? Slash Series 1, obviously, for those people watching on Disney Plus over in America and the rest of the world. Yeah, what did I think of Series 1 slash Series 14? I mean, there were some good episodes in there, but let's start by talking about Space Babies. What can I say about Space Babies? Well, I mean, there's a few things that I can say about Space Babies. Is that was not the best episode, and I don't think it's a best episode to start off with, as well. Like, I mean, it would have been better if you'd gone in with more of, I know, like a action kind of adventure-y kind of episode. It was kind of an adventure, but it wasn't that good of an episode. I didn't enjoy it. I mean, some of the things were a bit funny. I mean, the really badly edited faces on the babies, that just seemed just weird, and I don't think quite made sense. And it just made it look really bizarre as well. Like, they just had the mouths. It was just a bit creepy, if I'm completely honest. It wasn't as good as this episode of me personally, but the following episode is a lot better. I mean, I think everybody agrees with that. But there were a few funny things in that, and the bogey monster being bogies or whatever. That was just a bit. It was just a bit naff. I mean, I can't really argue with that. The first episode, a bit naff. It would have been better if they gone Church of Ruby Road, then the Devil's Called. That might have been slightly better, because to be fair, Space Babies was a bit of a weird one. But yeah, there's not really much I can say about Space Babies. It's quite a compact episode. There's not loads of characters. There's a few characters, and they're mainly babies. And then they got the that other woman. I forgot her name now, but she was in there, and she was like kind of looking after them, being the nanny for all these babies. And these babies haven't grown old or anything. They've just stayed as babies. And it's really sad though, because when the Doctor and Ruby arrive, they're like, "Oh, Mummy and Daddy's arrived," and that's just. I think that's really sad. That is, if I'm completely honest, really sad. Really sad, which is a bit depressing, really. But that was a nice thing to kind of say that those babies, they were expecting their mum and dad, and they never came home, which I found upsetting as well. And it was a baby farm as well, a bit random, completely. But we get the third appearance of Susan Twist, who becomes this ongoing story arc of who is this woman this older age woman throughout the series, which is interesting, and I'll go into a bit later. I mean, bit weird storyline anyway. But yeah, moving on to the following episode, The Devil's Chord. So The Devil's Chord, we have the Beatles in this episode. Well, hey, I love the Beatles. They're brilliant. I've got a few of their albums and stuff. I love the Beatles. They're really good and all that. But if I'm completely honest, the Beatles didn't need to be in this episode. If I'm completely honest, you could have had, like, to be fair, the Beatles didn't need to be in this episode, and I can go into reasons why. Because one thing, they had another musical artist down. I've forgotten her name now. I'll remember later. But yeah, there's another musical artist in there. But the fact is, the Beatles were in all of the press. They were on Doctor Who magazine. They were on the front of this that was given away free with Doctor Who magazine. They were everywhere. They were in all the adverts, advertisements, and all that sort. The Beatles in Doctor Who. There were news headlines all over the BBC, ITV News. Beatles in Doctor Who, all of that sort of stuff. But to be fair, they only had about 5 minutes of screen time, probably even less than that in the actual episode, which was really depressing. I mean, you ramp up something like the Beatles being in Doctor Who, and you do nothing with it at all, which I found ridiculous, because why would you not want to use the Fab Four in Doctor Who? Now, no offense to Russell T Davies or anything, but if I was writing Doctor Who, I would make the Beatles more of a centre of the episode. Is this like a character episode about the Beatles? A bit like no, I'm gonna say a Chris Chibnall episode. That's a bit weird, but I don't know if you remember Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror from about 4 years ago. That's a long time ago. It's nearly as old as the channel. Yeah. Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Now that has a good where it's focused on Nikola Tesla and his genius of coming up, inventing, and all that. Well, it could have centered around then, but it just centered around music. And getting into the villain of the episode, Maestro. Now they were a bit how do I describe? A bit weird. I mean, a bit weird and creepy. But I did like the concept of extracting music from like people's souls, and how Ruby had music, the famous Christmas music in her. Like, I found that pretty interesting, and also how we get another foreshadowing of the one who waits and all that sort of stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. But one thing I can say about the Beatles is that John and Paul both save the day at the end of the episode. A bit random, really. But yeah, I mean, the cast of the Beatles is, some of them look like them and some of them just don't, and they didn't really do that much. But again, it could have been anybody else apart from the Beatles. I mean, yeah, I think it got too much hype than it needed, if I'm completely honest, with the second episode. But I think it's still a solid episode. But it's a good episode, but I mean, I wouldn't say it was amazing. Yeah. But moving on to Boom, the next episode. Boom. Now, what can I say about Boom? But Boom. It was a solid episode. I got to say, as an episode, Boom is written by Stephen Moffat, and if you guys don't know this, but Peter Capaldi is my favourite Doctor. He was written by Stephen Moffat. So a lot of people said on the internet, I think people have said about it feels like it could have been Clara and Capaldi, or Amy and the Doctor. They kind of see that could have been. I didn't really see that from them personally. I felt like this was very tied to Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor, because I don't know whether any of you guys have realised this over the course of the series, is that Ncuti Gatwa's character as the Doctor, his 15th Doctor, he seems to cry quite a lot. And no offense to Ncuti Gatwa, but I know the Doctor has emotions and feelings and all that, but to cry in literally every single story, I think is just a bit ridiculous. I mean, I think it's a good thing to be in contact with your emotions and all that, but do you need to constantly cry? I just don't know. It takes away kind of it, But yeah, I just think it's a bit weird. That's all. like having the Doctor just um, constantly cry all the time. But I understand why he was crying in this episode, because he didn't really cry in the previous 2 episodes that much. It makes sense why he would cry, because he's literally standing on a landmine that's about to explode. So I understand why. Oh, and we get Susan Twist again popping up as another character as an ambulance this time. And the ambulance, he shoots dead Ruby, and that's just like, what the hell? But I would say that's probably one of the best episodes of the series, if I'm completely honest. Something else I'm going to get into, some of the politicsy elements haven't been as much. At the start of the series, there wasn't as much political kind of agenda, I would say. Like, Boom, there was definitely not at all, really, that I saw. Which I would think is a good thing, because I feel like Doctor Who doesn't need to force-fed political agendas. I feel like Doctor Who just needs to be Doctor Who, be, mucking around sci-fi, running away from aliens, and there doesn't always need to be a political agenda. Which I'm glad there's only been hints to political stuff, which I think's okay. But once you focus too far deep into it, you get lost in the world of Doctor Who, and it just becomes like, this is politics and all that, which I'm not a big fan of. If you haven't gathered from previous episodes of me reviewing stuff. But yeah, I think Boom, solid episode. Also a strange one that the companion who was announced, I forgot her name. I believe she did an interview about this episode as well. Fairly interesting as well. Yeah, but what I'm going to say, Ruby, as a whole, is a pretty solid companion. I really do like her relationship with her and Ncuti Gatwa. They seem to get on really well. Millie Gibson and Ncuti Gatwa seem to have a good chemistry together, which I think is pretty good. Obviously, a Doctor companion dynamic like that needs to, be together like that. So I think that's pretty good. That pairing, anyway, at least, was absolutely solid for me. I think that's a brilliant pairing. But I don't know how it's going to change when the new companion's introduced next year. But we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so moving on to the next episode after Boom. Now, after Boom, I believe it's 73 yards. Now, what did I think of 73 yards? The first question is, what the hell? what was this episode? It was all over the place. The most confusing episode of Doctor Who I think there's probably ever been, and probably ever will be. I know Ross Davis has gone on record saying this is the best thing he's ever written. I think he's or something like that, 73 yards. But to be fair, I mean, it's an alright episode, but using Ruby and then going her through all of periods of times, and they talk about Roger Apt Williams or whatever he was called, the guy who was gonna destroy the world with like nuclear bombs and all that. Now this is the episode I wasn't a big fan of. Firstly, the political agenda. That's not really what Doctor Who should be about and needs to be about. But having that story there, and the woman who was 73 yards away, we don't know. And as people have said, other stuff that I don't know. I just it's confusing and strange, but yeah, I do like the mystery of who is the woman and how everybody who then speaks to the woman turns away from the woman. It kind of reminded me. I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Curse of Clyde Langer. It's a episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures, and it's where basically Clyde gets tapped by a totem pole, and he gets a splinter, and then suddenly has a curse where everybody who hears his name or speaks to him then immediately turn against him and want to just be horrible to him back. Which kind of reminded me of this about Ruby, who's like, her mum just runs off and leaves as soon as she speaks to the woman. So Kate Stewart, she does the same thing as well. It just seems to be like that, which I thought was rather an interesting way to go, because it's very similar to the Curse of Clyde Langer episode. I might review that on the channel. That'd be pretty good. Love the Sarah Jane Adventures. Love watching that. But yeah. So that was kind of the interesting part of the episode. And obviously Unit being there again and Kate Stewart and all that. the Doctor wasn't in this very much because he was too busy filming other stuff. I think he must have been Barbie or whatever he was in, because he's been in loads of other stuff. But he's a really good actor, Shuigawa, and I've given the benefit of the doubt because, I mean, I wasn't sure about him within the Space Babies episode. Wasn't a big fan of, so I was worried all the episodes were going to be really bad. But Shuigawa, I think, is out. Even though there has been bad episodes, he's really shined out as being a really good episode, like a good actor, and I hope he does a few more series. I mean, yeah, I mean, I reckon he's got another 3 series probably ahead of him. But yeah, he's pretty good Doctor. And this is a character-led episode by Ruby. And yeah, I think Ruby is a solid companion. But yeah, we will find out the mystery of her parents at some point. I'll get into that later. So the next episode, Dot and Bubble. what did I think of Dot and Bubble? Wow, this is an episode that is interesting, and what I find remarkably weird. So we start off with this girl. Oh, I've forgotten the name now, but she seems to be just really horrible all the time. Like, she's just really like self-obsessed and like, thinks about herself as a really great person and all that sort of stuff. And then yeah, she's really weird, and she's got all these friends in her bubble, and they're all like, yeah, they're so annoying. I think it's supposed to be getting it kind of the idea about social media. It's kind of be like, Snapchat and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not a big user of that kind of stuff. Yeah, not really my kind of thing. YouTube's my kind of thing. But yeah. So that's what I kind of think. This is a bit weird that was all that kind of supposed to be kind of like that Snapchat, Instagram kind of thing, the Dot and Bubble, and having all of these people, and then they can't even walk without having the bubble on. Like, it makes me feel worried, for the future. If we're all going to be walking around with the AI telling us to walk, just seems ridiculous. If I'm completely honest, imagine just walking around by yourself. Well, not being able to walk around by yourself with an AI telling you what to move. I mean, that just seems ridiculous within itself. But yeah, Dot and Bubble, and then they introduce this character called Ricky September. He seems really great, and he actually knows how to walk. I mean, he actually knows how to walk. As obviously you have to use the Dot and Bubble to actually walk. So Ricky September knows how to walk anyway, and he likes reading books, and he seems to be quite sensible, and he's not always on the Dot and Bubble. So that's rather an interesting thing. Yeah, he's still a big, a famous person, but he helps the girl out, and then he tries to take them in, and then he finds out that the the city and the homeland over there or whatever has been taken over by these giant slugs, so they can't do anything about that. There's just slugs everywhere, and they're eating people and killing people, and all her friends are dying. But I don't really care because I don't feel any sympathy for this character because she's really annoying. And then, just as she's about to escape, she kills Ricky September. Now, Ricky September saved her, looked after her, and made sure that she got away safe. And she goes ahead and basically murders him. Well, basically says onto the Dot, oh, he actually changed his name, and then it goes straight in like that, and I was like, she is horrible, evil, if not that, just a really horrible person. And even when the Doctor and Ruby were trying to help her earlier, she would only listen to Ruby, all that sort of stuff, and she was just horrible, absolutely horrible. I mean, luckily in my life, I've never met anyone that horrible, like that anyway. Yeah, but absolutely horrible. And then she And then she turns out to be a big racist at the end, which really tops her off as a really lovely person. No, it doesn't. She's absolutely horrible. And I feel like that, if I was the Doctor, I would have just left her to die. I mean, if I'm completely honest. She is horrible. And then she even lied to the Doctor's face saying, oh, Ricky went back and tried to save other people. And all that. I was like, absolute liar. She's just horrible. And she said, oh, I might get and then the guys said over there, well, I might get contaminated from. I was like, he's receiving like racism, all the way that back then, not back then, in the future, which is even worse for the society. Society's supposed to move forward. Yeah, completely. What I've got to say, mad, and I think that that character is awful. And Russell T Davies, I mean, you're a brilliant writer because, I mean, I absolutely hated that character, and you could tell by just the way she was that you would just want to go. You just you just hate her. There's nothing you can do about it. And the Doctor even gets really angry because he wants to save them. He said, "You're gonna die if you don't go back there." And then he's like, "Oh, might as well go." He's like, "Yeah, really, it's hard, and all that." So then, moving on to the next episode. Rogue is the next episode. Now, what can I say about Rogue? This is an interesting episode as well. I mean, I like this episode. It was decent. It was good. I mean, I wouldn't say it was the most amazing episode I think I have ever watched of Doctor Who. I mean, it was watchable. It wasn't like some of the Jodie Whittaker episodes that aren't that good. I mean, this was watchable. But yeah, solid episode. I mean, I like the bird people. They were a bit weird. They were kind of reminded me of like those weird aliens, but they were like, oh, they want to cosplay as certain people. I was just like, this is too far weird. Absolutely strange that was. But it happened. It happened, and we got introduced to the new character Rogue, who the episode is named after. And Rogue is some kind of. He reminded me of Captain Jack in a lot of ways. There were certain parallels between him and Jack anyway. Well, it's not just because one, they had an American accent, and two, because they were acting shifty and had a blaster gun thing. But yeah, he just kind of reminded me of Jack in a lot of ways, and the Doctor kind of befriends him, and then later on they kind of spiral in something of like more like they love each other, which I guess was interesting. But yeah, because Rogue lost his friend or whatever, or lost his partner or whatever, and he wanted, the Doctor. The Doctor said he was going to help me. But I must get into something else. Richard E. Grant's head appears in the faces of the Doctor. Why? I don't know. I know he appeared in the Curse of Fatal Death Doctor Who episode, which happened at Comic Relief 1999. I know that he appeared in the Scream of the Shulker as the Doctor. I know he appeared in the 11th Doctor's era as the Great Intelligence. But to be fair, what the hell is he doing on the Doctor's face? I really don't know. But I mean, it would have made sense because if he's supposed to be a pre-Hartnell incarnation, then that doesn't make any sense. And then if he's supposed to be after William Hartnell, that makes even less sense. So, I don't know. No idea. Absolutely not a clue. Yeah, so I've got no idea. But Rogue is an episode pretty good. The bird people were a bit weird, and that end reveal of thinking Ruby has died again, but I know she hasn't because I've seen the trailer and she's in the finale. So yeah, yeah. So that was interesting. Seeing Ruby get killed, and then turns out she she's like acting actually, and she actually pretends. And then she hits the bird with the reason that breaks the bird's nose. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. And these bird people, they're like all killing people, and they're gonna cosplay across the galaxy and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's rather interesting. Yeah, it was a bit weird, and you get all those references to Bridgerton and all that sort of stuff. I mean, there are similarities. I mean, all they're doing is just wearing period clothing and acting strange, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy that kind of banter, you know, between the Doctor and Rogue, but particularly in Rogue ship, they're kind of bantering with each other, and the Doctor plays the music again, and he's like, he's like kind of joking around with him and all that stuff, and he's getting really frustrated. And then the Doctor takes Rogue to his TARDIS and like shows it off, like, you know, and then he starts singing "The World of Imagination" from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So yeah, so yeah, that was a bit of a quirky kind of thing there. But yeah, I mean, solid episode all round. I mean, pretty good, I'd say so. And then obviously, you know, Rogue he takes the bird people away to be killed, and he's like, "Oh, I'll meet you again." And then it's kind of a bit sad. And then the Doctor, I think he cries again or something. I don't know. I mean, the Doctor cries so much during this series; it's ridiculous. I really want Shooty in his next series to be a bit more tougher and not to cry as much. I mean, that would be pretty good, because I feel like that would benefit his character. Like, if the Doctor's supposed to be more tough man, he doesn't show. He shows emotions, but not like that. He doesn't constantly cry all the time. Yeah, because if you cry too much in like the TV, it takes away from the drama of what you're actually watching, and you lose the emotional beat. So when the Doctor does cry, it's nicer. You know what I mean? It's like fits the scene better. Whereas if he just cries all the time, it just loses everything, doesn't it? But yeah, so moving on to the finale. Now, where do I begin on the finale? Legend of Ruby Sunday, and then the other part as well. I've forgotten the name now. But yeah, what can I say about the finale? Pretty solid finale. I mean, you've got the Doctor, and the Doctor crash lands into Ace, and he not into Ace. Where did Ace come from? I don't know why I said that. Crash lands into a unit. And he goes through, but basically, let me do a little bit of a reconstruction here. Yeah. Here we have the TARDIS. Say it flings in like that and all that. Yeah. Bashes in. He goes in like that, right through unit headquarters. And then we see the TARDIS, and we see loads of returning people. We see people like, you know, Rose, Donna's daughter. We obviously see Mel. We see some new people. We see Lenny Rush. Yeah, he's in this episode as well. He's a great actor as well. Very great actor. And then we also see Kate Stewart again as well. I mean, it's not that bad. I'm missing on Kate Stewart. I mean, that's pretty good. But the first part, I've got to say, for solid cliffhanger, I mean, we see that Susan Triad is her actual name. This woman who appears all the time. This woman who keeps on appearing throughout all of time and space. Turns out it was actually Susan Triad, which I think is really good. You know, seeing Susan Triad as that character in modern day, and the Doctor's like, look at the anagram. It's TARDIS. That's what he's like. Yeah, he's like that, and then it's like, we all knew that, Doctor. And it was like, oh, I look less intelligent now. Kind of a bit funny. And then it's like, oh, Susan, is that significant? I was like, oh, my granddaughter was called Susan, and then it was about that. It was like, Brie didn't never mentioned a granddaughter. I was like, oh, I was a different Doctor back then. This is kind of like, I don't know, I went to a bit Paul again. Yeah, which I thought a bit interesting there, going through that, and the Doctor actually feeling something about Susan because she gets mentioned in the Devil's Court when they go back to 1963. Yeah, so that was rather interesting that we got to see that. And the Doctor thinks, oh, it could be Susan. Maybe I'll go and see her. And then he goes up to see her, and it isn't Susan. It's just some random woman called Susan who has an anagram of the TARDIS as a surname. Yeah, so that was a bit random. But yeah. And then we get to all of that kind of stuff, and we go through the rest of the episode being really great and such a brilliant kind of way. And then we come towards the end, and after we've done some going around, Mel's investigated with the Doctor. Mrs. Flood has done. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention Mrs. Flood, but she keeps on popping up as this kind of random character. So we do all of that, and then suddenly, towards the end of the episode, the TARDIS starts going funny, all like red and smoky, and all of that sort of stuff, because they go into this thing where they got a VHS recording of Ruby's, like, where she was like born and left and all that, and they have this kind of big scanner and scans the big pictures, and the TARDIS goes up, and all this grey stuff and everything goes to dust and all that sort of stuff. All people die to dust and everything like that. And then moving on to the finale, the words start changing, and they change to like Susan, and they see Triad, and then it goes to, and then it makes this one true name, Sutekh. The return of Sutekh from Pyramids of Mars, 1975. Pretty incredible. I mean, that's a long time. That's 49 years since he last appeared, and he's back as the big bad. I mean, that was pretty interesting to see Sutekh back. I mean, I wasn't alive the last time he appeared on TV, but yeah, that was interesting seeing Sutekh. And he actually been clinging on to the TARDIS ever since the events of Pyramids of Mars, which brings up a lot of questions. How the hell did the Doctor not notice that there was a giant dog behind his TARDIS the entire time? We don't know. And it just seems a bit, no offence to Russell Davies, but it seems a bit stupid. Because the Doctor would have noticed. And also, a lot of people have brought up the facts of the Time War. So, did the Doctor go through flying out throughout all of time and space during the Time War with a giant dog clinging to the back of his TARDIS? A lot of people have pointed out when Captain Jack was clinging onto the TARDIS in Utopia, he was actually clinging onto the TARDIS right next to a giant dog, Sutekh. And yeah, it's a bit stupid, if I'm being honest. A lot of people are disappointed, upset about this. It's not the best finale anybody could ever have wished for. And the way he gets defeated as well, by a dog lead. Yeah. And by Ruby going like this, and then there's always this thing about Ruby's mother. Who's Ruby's mother? Is it someone important? Is it a god? Is it someone like that? No. It's just some random woman who's northern. It's not a god. It's not an alien. It's just another human. Wow. Wowzers. Who just looks a bit like an older Ruby. So yeah, and then everybody gets converted back from being dust and they become human again. Sude gets sent into the time vortex, let go of his lead and sort of stuff. And then Ruby goes back home and she meets her mother for the first time, who she's never met. And then they're all happy and they all live happily ever after. You know, the Doctor's a bit sad and he goes off in his TARDIS. And that's kind of the end of it. And then Mrs. Flood says some narration at the end. But yeah, that's kind of all I've got to say on that. I mean, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in a video soon enough. I mean, as a series, a very mixed bag. Up and down. There are some solid ones in there. Like, I mean, Devil's Call's pretty good. Legend of Ruby Sunday is pretty good. Part 1. Part 2 is a bit naff. Dawn Bubble, interesting. Bit of betrayal. Rogue, pretty good episode as well. But I mean, yeah, they're not complete bangers all the time. I mean, Boom's a solid episode as well. But yeah, I mean, overall, pretty good series. I mean, I'd probably give it 7 out of 10. Or 6 out of 10. That'll do for me. And the memory tile disappearing, that was pretty good as well. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the video soon enough. Bye for now.